Hello everyone, I am Laethas and welcome back again for another video. Today I have my manga haul for the month of January 2020, the first haul of the decade. And yes, I do know it is coming a couple of weeks into February. This just so happened to be the time I had to record. But without further ado, let's get right into the haul. To start off with, I have the 10th and final volume of Shuzo Oshimi's Happiness, and if you've known me for any amount of time, you would know that I am a big Shuzo Oshimi fan, and I am extremely happy to have this series complete, and can't wait to get into this one. I've read about half of it so far, loved it, and I just can't wait to finish reading it. I love all of his works that I've read so far, and this is just more of his work. If you've read a series by him, this is going to feel very familiar to you, but it's unique enough to where I feel it will provide you a fun reading experience if you liked his other works. If you've never read any of his works, he's similar in a sense to Inio Asano. If you've read any of Asano's works, definitely a different style, but you can very definitely feel that the two are making manga that will probably appeal to very similar groups of people. They're not the same. If you've read any of either of their works, or you've read both of their works, you'll know they are different in their sort of the way they convey information, and their general just style of storytelling is slightly different, but I feel they appeal very much to the same crowd. So if you like Asano's works, give Oshimi's works a try. Highly recommend checking out Happiness. Deals with vampires, so if you're interested in that, you may find this one particularly intriguing, but yeah, love Happiness. Cannot wait to finish it. Next up, I have If I Could Reach You, Volume 3. This is a Yuri title, and it is about this little girl who ends up falling in love with her sister-in-law because her brother has married her. They've known each other for a long time, but she's recently come to terms with the fact that she is very attracted to her now sister-in-law, and that creates some problems for them. So if you're familiar with these Yuri types of stories, I would liken this one more to something like Citrus than I would to something like Kiss and White Lily. It generally has more of that kind of style to it, I would say. That being said, if you're not a fan of Yuri, but you're big into romance series, then I would recommend checking If I Could Reach You out at least a little bit, maybe the first one or two volumes. Again, it's not going to be for everyone, especially because of the relationship between our two sort of love interest characters. So that may be off-putting to some, but I have been enjoying the series so far, and I want to see where it goes. But that is Volume 3 of If I Could Reach You by TMNR. Next up, I have Yuri Is My Job, Volume 5. I think this catches us up to Japan, though they may be on Volume 6 right now, but this is as far as we have gotten in English. So I've read Volume 1, really liked it, so been putting these volumes off so I can binge it later, as that is my preferred reading style, or at least for several series. There are some series I don't like to do that with, but this, I have a feeling I'm just going to want to read a lot at one time. But it's basically about this girl that gets roped into a job at a cafe, where the appeal of the cafe, you know, you have maid cafes and whatever type of cafes. This one is kind of like a quote-unquote Yuri cafe, where it's like hinted at that all the employees have like, they're acting as like they're into each other. So that's kind of the play. But yeah, it's basically about these two girls. They have, I'm not going to spoil it. There is a little bit spoilery material in the first volume. I don't really want to play up the little twist that happens at the end. But yeah, I enjoyed it. If you're a fan of Yuri series, recommend it. If you're looking for a romance series, also a good venture, I would say. I enjoyed what I read. Can't wait for more. As you can tell, I didn't just say, hey, I read the first volume, I'm going to buy 2 and 3 just to make sure I like it. No, I'm very confident that I'm going to enjoy this series, at least for quite a bit of time. But yeah, that is Yuri Is My Job, Volume 5. Next up, I have the first 2 volumes of the Tales of Berseria manga adaptation. Of course, this is the adaptation of the game, Tales of Berseria. I have played the game. I really liked the game. There were moments that I didn't like, but for the most part, I would say I enjoyed my time with the series. And this is just going to be a 3-volume long manga adaptation. So, if you've never played Berseria, probably hard to recommend it. Obviously, it's a game that they just adapted into manga form, so there's going to be sort of a limitation on the audience for that one. If you've never played Berseria, maybe check it out if you want a little fantasy series that's not too long. Maybe give it a read. I did enjoy Berseria for the story. It's not the greatest story I've ever seen, but it definitely did its job well enough for me to enjoy the game and to continue playing it, and so I thought that I'd just pick up this short 3-volume manga adaptation of that game. I've read the first volume thus far. I did enjoy it, so I'll just be reading the next 2 volumes. Again, not very long. But if you did like the Tales of Berseria game, if you have played it, then I would recommend at least giving this one a look. At the very least, check out Volume 1 to see how you like the way that Nobu Aonagi has decided to adapt the game to a manga format. Obviously, the pace is going to be much faster than in the game, because in the game you have combat and encounters and all that kind of fun stuff. So obviously, this is going to feel much faster. But if you enjoyed the game, and you enjoyed the story enough that you want to see a different sort of telling of it, maybe check out this manga adaptation of it. As for everyone else, if you're just wanting a short little fantasy series, maybe I'd recommend checking it out. But again, I think this is more just for people that have played the game series. But that is volumes 1 and 2 for Tales of Berseria, the manga adaptation. Next up, I have Heavenly Delusion Volume 1, a new manga published by Denpa Books, and this is only the first volume, and I have to say, I am very intrigued as to where this series is going to go. It seems to be taking place in 2 separate places with 2 separate casts of characters and trying to mix their stories together. I don't know if there's a time difference between these 2 sort of groups. I have a feeling it's taking place at the very least very similar time places. But if you are looking for, I want to say, it's definitely a post-apocalyptic sort of, the world has been destroyed, and there are some not so nice monster creatures that kill people that you gotta avoid. Sometimes people aren't nice, standard post-apocalyptic type stuff. There's monsters that kill you, and there are people that will kill you, so you kind of have to know who to trust and who maybe not to get into relations with. But this is its own take on it, and I don't really want to give too much away, because there are very interesting elements that I'd like to see you find out for yourself, basically, but highly recommend checking this one out. At least give this first volume a read. And I also like checking out Denpa's books, because they're a new publisher, or at least relatively new, compared to most other publishers. And they also were kind enough to do an interview with me. You can check that out on my channel if you'd like to see that. There will be a link to that at the end of the video and down in the description below. But really loved Heavenly Delusion and highly recommend you check this one out. Next up, I have volume 14 for Tokyo Ghoul Re. Almost finished with all of Tokyo Ghoul Re, only 2 more volumes left. Tokyo Ghoul Re, obviously the sequel to the original Tokyo Ghoul. Enjoyed that. Imagine I will enjoy this sequel series as well. Don't probably have to mention too much about this series, as it's one of the more popular works, not just in manga format, but in anime format as well. So most people are pretty well acquainted with this series, especially if you've managed to stumble yourself upon a MangaTube channel. You probably are aware of Tokyo Ghoul Re, or at the very least, the original Tokyo Ghoul. So, Tokyo Ghoul Re, it's the sequel. It's more Tokyo Ghoul. Interested in seeing how this series does, and it's almost over, so I can finally binge it in only a few more months when that final 16th volume comes out. But yeah, Tokyo Ghoul Re Volume 14. Next up, I have the 3rd volume of Emon, and this is kind of an interesting work. It's very, I don't want to say slow, but it's very contemplative is what I would generally use. I've read the first volume, absolutely loved it. Highly recommend you check out this series. Obviously, I'm waiting for more volumes to come out. This series does release very slowly in Japan, so we'll probably be caught up in English very soon. I think only 4 or 5 volumes are out in Japan, but loved what I read thus far. Probably going to wait till we catch up to just read whatever is out, but really hard to describe. It's about this woman who has memories basically dating back to the dawn of life on Earth, and she just remembers everything that has happened. So, very interesting, very kind of different. I've never really seen a story do something with this kind of character, and I'm very interested to see where it goes. If you're looking for more of a contemplative work, a work that is going to make you think about things, I would recommend checking Emon out, and this is Volume 3. Not to mention that Dark Horse has done a very nice job with the publication of this series, so kudos to them for doing this series, kind of a very nice job. Dark Horse's volumes have gotten significantly better than what they used to have been, and now they usually produce very high quality volumes, so I'm happy to see that such a good series is getting such nice volumes. But yeah, Volume 3 of Emon, definitely recommend checking this one out. Next up, I have Volume 11, also the final volume for Belle Blot. I only have 2 more volumes of this series to read before I am completed. That is Volume 10 and Volume 11, and I enjoyed the beginning of the series quite a lot, though I haven't been enjoying the more recent volumes as much as the beginning, but there weren't too many more volumes left to collect before I was, the series was done, so I decided, you know what, I'm going to read Volume 10 and 11 and hope that the series gets better at the end and has a nice conclusion, but we shall see about that. If you're looking for a high fantasy series, I would recommend at least giving this one a look. Obviously, it's not going to be for everyone, and it's been compared to Berserk, I think because the main character and the main character of Berserk, Guts, have kind of similar motivations, but I wouldn't really liken this series to Berserk more than that or the high fantasy setting. So, just because you like Berserk, that doesn't mean you'll necessarily like this one, but that also stands to reason that if you don't like Berserk, you might actually enjoy this series. But you never know. It's hard to really say, especially with fantasy series. Some people only like certain ones. It really just kind of depends on the person, but I enjoyed the series, at least the very few volumes, quite a lot. I still enjoy the later volumes, I just don't think they're as good. I think the series could have gone in better directions, but this is the final volume, and I'm going to be completing it, or at least completing my read of it very soon. But that is Volume 11, the final omnibus for Belle Blot. Next up, I have the second omnibus for Stravaganza. I think there's going to be one more omnibus and then one single volume series, because this series is 7 volumes long in total. So, almost done, over halfway through this series. Really, really liked that first volume, or at least that first omnibus volume that came out last year. It was one of my 5 series from 2019 that I think you should check out. And so, I'm really anticipating enjoying this series. I'm going to wait until the rest of the series comes out before I continue my read of it. But it is basically about the queen of a kingdom, and her face is obscured when she is in public, so nobody really knows who she is, and that allows her to go outside of the keep, sort of unmasked, and no one recognizes it's the queen. So there's fun stuff that happens with that, especially when it comes to some of the people in her circle that know who she is. They get kind of nervous when she's going out and about into the town because she is the queen, and you don't want the queen of your kingdom to get killed or recognized. That's probably not a good thing, but it's basically about her adventures with her people, and I definitely enjoyed the first volume. So we shall see where this series goes, but I am anticipating enjoying this series quite a lot. But that is Stravaganza Omnibus Volume 2 by Udon Entertainment, written by Akihito Tomi. Next up, I have the second volume of Monster Wrestling. this volume was okay. I'm probably going to give this series one more volume, and if it doesn't really pique my interest, I'll probably drop it. I don't think it does the action shots too well. I don't think it knows what kind of a series it wants to be, so it's really hard for me to gauge what this series is about. Obviously, there's monster girls. Duh, maybe that is the whole point, and he just wants to put them in various scenarios. I generally like to have some kind of story going along with these kinds of series, with some internal character struggle, usually is how it's going to go. But this series, I don't know quite yet. I'll give it volume 3, and if I don't like it, I will probably drop it at that point, unless it ends up being 4 volumes long, in which case I'll say, you know what the heck, we'll finish it off, see what the ending is like. But this is the second volume for Monster Wrestling. If you're a Monster Girl fan, there are other series that are just better than this one, in my opinion, but we'll see if things improve in volume 3, but this is volume 2 for Monster Wrestling. Next up, we have Murcielago volume 13. Now, this series is hyper-violent, hyper-gory, hyper-crazy, basically. It's as insane as you can be. So, if you're looking for something crazy, wild, action-heavy, adrenaline-pumping, check Murcielago out. You'll have a blast with it. If you don't want a high-action series, and you're more of a mellow kind of person, you don't really like series with a ton of action, violence, gore, any of that, you probably won't enjoy it. It's not that difficult to peg who's going to like this one and who's not. Obviously, some people are exceptions to the rule, but usually it goes, do you want an action series that's high on the violence, the gore, and the crazy? You're going to enjoy Murcielago. If you detest those kinds of series, you're probably not going to like it. But Murcielago, Volume 13, this is sometimes classified as a Yuri. I wouldn't give it that classification, mainly because there really isn't a whole lot of Yuri elements in it. It just so happens that the main character is a lesbian. That doesn't make it a Yuri, but, you know, maybe I'm wrong in the later volumes, correct me, but of what I've read, that doesn't seem to be the case. So, if you're a Yuri fan, don't get fooled by that label. I do not think it is accurate, but that is Murcielago, Volume 13. If you want action, definitely check this one out. Next up, we have Volume 6 for the case study of Vanitas. We are almost caught up with the Japanese releases. They are on Volume 7. This is by Jun Mochizuki, who is the author of Pandora Hearts, and if you like that series, you'll definitely like this one. Basically, it has a very similar feel. You can definitely tell it is by her, and this one I actually like this one a little better than her other work, Pandora Hearts. Obviously, that can change as the series gets longer, and I read more, maybe it goes in a bad direction. But what I've read so far, I have enjoyed it. Also, there are vampires, and I like vampires. Like to see what different authors decide to do with them. But yeah, Volume 6 for the case study of Vanitas. Very similar to Jun Mochizuki's other work in sort of its feel, so if you've read Pandora Hearts, I'd recommend checking this one out. But I have been enjoying it. I think I've read the first 3 volumes and have been holding off to sort of binge more when the time comes, but that may be soon since we're almost caught up. But yeah, Volume 6 of the case study of Vanitas. Next up, we have Volumes 9 and 10 for Hoary Mia. Now, there's not a whole lot to say about this series. It is a romantic comedy about 2 characters that kind of change as they progress into the future. Obviously, they change as they go through high school. They learn more about each other. They kind of put on a different persona when they're at high school than when they're relaxed and at home. And it's a very standard romantic comedy series, but just because it's standard doesn't mean it's bad. I feel it holds its own very well. And if you're looking for a normal romantic comedy, highly recommend checking this one out. It does what it does well, and it has enough intrigue in the characters and their relationship for me to say I believe it is worthwhile to read. But yeah, I think actually I'm not caught up to the series in English, but I think the English release is caught up, or at least only 1 volume behind the Japanese release, so it might not be too long before we just have to wait a long time for each volume, but I have enjoyed what I've read. I've read through volume 8. We'll see how 9 and 10 go. This is one of the series I enjoy reading volume to volume, but volumes 9 and 10 of Hoary Mia, pretty standard romantic comedy, but a good one at that. So if that's what you're looking for, recommend checking this one out. Next up, I have Tomochan is a Girl, Volume 6. Only 2 more volumes of this fun 4-coma series left to go. And it's a 4-coma comedy series, but the panels seem to flow very nicely, so that at the end of one 4-coma sort of strip, it very cleanly leads into the next one. Some 4-coma manga I've read, it feels very disjointed, and that kind of bothers me. That's why I don't usually like 4-coma series, but I feel like this one does it quite well, to where it doesn't really feel like any of the action is stopped, and it doesn't really feel too janky. The transitions feel very, very good. And it's a romantic comedy 4-coma series about a girl and a boy who were childhood friends that kind of became separated at one point, and now they are back together, not together as a couple, but together as in they're going to the same school, in the same classes, that kind of thing. They see each other often, and it's basically about them hooking up, or at least trying to, but yeah, standard stuff, but I enjoy it. It does what it does very well, and I would recommend checking this series out just to give a little glimpse of the series. The panels lead very nicely into one another. Fun, I enjoy it, and I would recommend checking this series out. Next up, I have Volume 1 of Saki the Succubus Hungers Tonight, and this one was not what I was expecting it to be, which led me to be more disappointed than I probably otherwise would have been, but it wasn't really what I was looking for. I thought it was going to be something different, but it just wasn't. I thought it was going to be mostly focusing on our succubus character, but it's not. It's focusing on the guy that she's rooming with, and I just don't find him all that interesting. I would have much rather seen a story that kind of follows her around. I might give it one more volume to see if that changes, but I was pretty disappointed that it wasn't what I was looking for. But, you know, sometimes you make mistakes. You think something's going to be one thing and it ends up not being. That just happens, but probably give it one volume more. But if I don't like it, I'll probably drop it. But, yeah, not much else to say. It's pretty short. The volumes are not all that long. But, yeah, Volume 1 of Saki the Succubus Hungers Tonight was not what I was expecting, and that wasn't a particularly good thing. I think it wasn't as good, I think maybe because of that. But, yeah, first volume of Saki the Succubus Hungers Tonight. Next up, I have Volume 10 for Nurse Hitomi's Monster Infirmary, and this, I think, is an excellent series that I recommend just about every single person at least read the first couple of volumes. I think it does its comedy very well, very smartly, and it surprisingly is good at discussing sort of complicated and awkward topics in a way that makes sense and does very well. I don't really know another series that does what this series does, and certainly not as well as this series does, but Nurse Hitomi's Monster Infirmary, highly recommend checking this one out. Not much else really to say about it. I really love this series. Definitely recommend you check it out. Not really a whole lot more. Don't really want to open Volume 10 up because it is possible spoilers that we don't want to, you know, unleash upon the world. But yeah, at least check out the first 1 or 2 volumes. I think you'll really like this series. What I've read, I think I've read the first 6 or 7 volumes, because normally I don't do that because then I get out of volumes to read and it sucks, but I did that because I enjoyed the series so much that I wanted to see where it went, and now we're at Volume 10 and I'm having to wait more time to build up a backlog so I can binge read more of it. But yeah, Nurse Hitomi's Monster Infirmary Volume 10. Really happy to see more of these volumes coming out. Volume 11, I think, is where the Japanese release is up to, so we're about to be caught up. That's going to suck for me, because it's going to take even longer for volumes to come out, but yeah, Volume 10, Nurse Hitomi's Monster Infirmary, highly recommend checking this series out. Next up, I have the first volume for Gal Gohan, which is a cooking manga about a girl that's not good at cooking, so she asks her cooking teacher if he can help her get better at cooking, and he's like, you know what? I haven't really, started any clubs or anything like that. I don't feel like I connect with the students all that well, so you know what? What the heck? We'll go ahead and try this out. So he just kind of starts helping her, cook food, teaching her about how to use different things, what ingredients to add to get certain flavors, that kind of thing. He's just kind of there, like, helping people cook, basically. But it's alright. I'll give it one more volume. It might go in a direction that I wasn't expecting it to go, so we'll give it one more volume. If I don't like it at that point, then I'll probably drop it, though this one wasn't as sort of disappointing as Saki the Succubus. I enjoyed this one more than that series, but we'll see how it goes. I'm not super into it. We'll give it one more volume. If I don't like it at that point, I will probably drop it, but it's an alright foodie manga. Granted, I don't really like cooking manga all that much, but this one more focuses on sort of him trying to connect with students and her trying to kind of connect with other people aside from her one group of friends. But yeah, it's alright. I'll give it one more volume. If I don't like where it's going, I will probably drop it, but that is Gal Gohan Volume 1. Next up, I have To Love Ru Darkness Volume 14. Can't really say much about Darkness since I haven't started it, because I'm waiting to finish the original To Love Ru. But I really like, and not really did like, I am liking, because I'm not finished reading it, the original series. So I imagine I will like the sequel series as well. But as I've said, can't really say a whole lot about this series, since I don't really know anything about it, other than it is the sequel. But yeah, To Love Ru Darkness Volume 14. Next up, I have Volume 9 of Yokai Girls, and this is a pretty normal Monster Girl series about a guy and the main Monster Girl character you can see right here, and it's basically about him and her and a couple of other characters just kind of going around doing typical Monster Girl series stuff, character relationships and that kind of thing. This one has more of an action-y twist to it, which is either a good thing or a bad thing depending on who you are. But I think, of what I've read, it's a serviceable series. It's only 14 volumes long. Obviously, that's longer than a lot of manga series, but it's not, at the infinity volume length that some series end up being. But yeah, Yokai Girls Volume 9. Only 5 more volumes to be complete. Next up, I have Volumes 7 and 8 for Yuna and the Haunted Hot Springs. I think I'm going to read from where I last stopped up to here to see if I want to continue getting this series. I think I've read volumes 1, 2, and 3, and I was still a little bit hesitant, but I was liking the series more, so we'll see where it goes up to volume 8. Oh, I'm dropping things. But we'll see what it is at volume 8 now. It's about a guy that's staying at a haunted hot spring hotel, and wacky shenanigans happen. Imagine, like, Love Hina, but instead of just normal people, like, that weird stuff just happens to, it's like supernatural people that weird stuff happens to. So, if you've read Love Hina, this will probably feel similar. It is more action than Love Hina was, but it definitely has that same vibe, because you got a guy staying at a hot spring inn. Like, there's definitely going to be things that feel similar. But yeah, I've read volumes 1 through 3. I enjoyed it enough to purchase more, but I didn't enjoy enough to where I thought that I was going to enjoy the series till its end. So here we are with volumes 7 and 8, and I will be reading up to volume 8 to determine if I continue any further. But that is Yuna and the Haunted Hot Springs volumes 7 and 8. Next up, I have Volume 1 for My Next Life as a Villainess, All Routes Lead to Doom. And this is the first volume of 4 for the manga adaptation of the light novel. And I absolutely loved this series. This first volume blew me away. I just wanted to read more. afterwards, I may have been a bad boy and decided to just read the rest of the series just because I loved it so much, but I will be picking up the rest of the volumes, but yeah, I was impatient. I couldn't wait, but that's a testament to how much I loved the series just from reading this first volume. But if nothing else, check this one out. Everyone, check this series out. It's fantastic. I don't know what much else to say. I want people to experience it. It's great. Check it out. Just read it. That's what I want. Yeah, not much else to say. I think 7 Seas did a great job with this license. I can't wait for the rest of the volumes to come out. I need them all now, but yeah, absolutely fantastic series. Go check it out. Go get this volume, and I hope we can see more. There is a different manga adaptation that has a starting point at a different place in time, which is kind of cool, so maybe if this one does well, they'll pick up that one as well. But yeah, check this one out. It's fantastic. Go read it. I absolutely loved it. But My Next Life as a Villainess, All Routes Lead to Doom. If I'd picked it up last year when it came out, this would have been in my 5 manga from 2019 you should check out. But alas, I did not pick it up then. Wish I had, because I would have loved to have spotlit this series in that video. But yeah. My Next Life as a Villainess, All Routes Lead to Doom, Volume 1. Check this out. It is fantastic. Next up, I have the second volume of Animeta. This is a series about a girl that decides to start working at an animation studio. I've only read the first volume. The series hasn't put much focus on her character, at least as of that volume. It's mostly been focusing on the process of making animations. So, you know, we'll see where that goes going forward. We'll see what it decides to put more of a focus on. But I enjoyed the first volume, decided to pick up the second volume. If I like it, I will pick up the third volume. This is a series I will probably read volume to volume, which is atypical of me, as I've said before. But if you're interested in animation, or at least the production of anime, if you're a fan of anime, I'd recommend checking this one out. I feel it does a decent job of showcasing some of the tools and some of sort of the mentality or mindsets behind some of the product that we consume probably somewhat frequently, especially if you're visiting a channel such as mine. But yeah, I enjoyed Volume 1. I'll see if Volume 2 continues to be as good as Volume 1. I hope it puts some more focus on our main character, because I like to have more of a story and not just be reading a textbook, but, you know, it kind of depends. I do enjoy the material itself, so even if not, I might still continue picking it up. But yeah, Animeta Volume 2, put out by J Novel Club. This is a manga, though. Don't let that label fool you. J Novel Club does publish manga. But yeah, Animeta Volume 2. Next up, we have the third omnibus for Elfin Lead. Only one more till it is complete. I watched the anime of Elfin Lead. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. So I'm just picking up these omnibus volumes till it's complete. Then I will read it all the way through, see what I think of it compared to the anime. I know the two diverge at some points. I don't exactly know at what chapter they do, but we shall see when the final volume comes out. But yeah. Volume 3, or Omnibus Volume 3 of 4, put out by Dark Horse. Obviously, I haven't read it. I've just seen the anime. We'll see how the source material compares, but yeah. Omnibus Volume 3 for Elfin Lead. Next up, we have Volume 2 for The Golden Sheep by Kaori Ozaki, the same mangaka that wrote and drew The Gods Lie, which is a single volume series, also put out by Vertical Comics. This is only 3 volumes long, so I've just been holding off until that third volume comes out to read it, so I don't really know a whole lot about this series, but if it's anything similar to The Gods Lie, I will definitely end up enjoying this series. But yeah, just to give kind of a sneak peek of her art style, it's nothing super special, but it definitely isn't bad. It gets the point across as, you know, as it needs to, but it's not something crazy. But yeah, we'll see what I like about this series Let me know what you guys think of this series if you've read any bit of it. And once the third volume comes out and I've read it, let me know if you want to see a review on this series since it is so short. But yeah, that is The Golden Sheep, Volume 2. Next up, we have Volume 2 for Ozakichan Wants to Hang Out. The cover shenanigans is true this time as it was in Volume 1. I'm probably going to determine whether I continue to pick up more of this series on this volume. Maybe after I read that, I'll be like, I don't know yet, and I'll pick up Volume 3 and then do the same thing again. But, you know, we shall see. Volume 1 wasn't too amazing, but it wasn't bad, so I decided to pick up Volume 2 to see where things are headed. But yeah, we'll see. It is a comedy series about Ozakichan, who is a big giant troll who likes basically making her senpai's, I think he's her senpai's life. Don't know if he's her classmate or her senpai. I can't remember. I think it's senpai. She likes making his life, like, kind of annoying. She likes to annoy him. And so that's how this series progresses. We'll see if I continue picking it up after this volume. It's a comedy series. Comedy series are very hit or miss for people. I can't really explain the comedy style all that well. I don't feel I'm equipped to do that, but yeah. If you love comedy series just in general, doesn't seem to matter what they are, maybe pick this one up. You can probably tell what some of the humor is going to be based on, but that's not all the humor is based on. So do keep that in mind. It isn't just that aspect of the series that is paid attention to. But yeah, Volume 2 of Ozakichan Wants to Hang Out. Next up, we have the long-awaited series Rose of Versailles, published by Udon Entertainment. They have had this for a while and for a variety of reasons. It is yet to come out, but here it is, Volume 1 of 5 in a very nice hardcover format. Not to mention, these are omnibus volumes. If you are curious, they do collect more than one of the original volume. But that being said, Rose of Versailles is a very old series. It has been around for a long time, and it is only just now that it is getting brought over into English. And it has a nice, like, cardstock page in the middle of it, which I wasn't expecting, but let's flip to right here. You can see 1972 is when it started serialization, so a very old series by Ryoko Ikeda, but now it's here. Haven't yet gotten into it. Very influential work, very important work, especially when it comes to shoujo manga, so I'm probably going to read the whole thing, kind of regardless of how I enjoy it, unless I detest the series for some reason, just because it is kind of an important work, and I'd like to have at least that knowledge base inside of my brain. But yeah, it's been a long time coming, but Udon did a nice job with this release, so, you know, it is what it is. We had to wait a long time, but the product we ended up getting is quite nice. If I do say, it is pretty expensive at $39 US, so pricey, definitely, but the release is very nice. It's a very nice publication, and they did a very good job with this release. I'll have more information when I finish this first omnibus volume. This is definitely a series I want to do a first impressions on. Bug the heck out of me on Twitter or in the comments section to do a first impressions on this series so I don't slack off and not do it. But yeah, I'm interested to see what this work is all about, especially with all of the importance that it has. But yeah, this is Rose of Versailles, hardcover omnibus, Volume 1. Next up, I have Volume 7 for the Sailor Moon Eternal Editions. Only 3 more of these large releases before the series is complete in these sort of large editions. They are pretty pricey, so unless this is what you want to collect, or if you're a big Sailor Moon fan, it might be a good idea to go with the much cheaper single volume releases. So it just is going to kind of depend, though these volumes are quite nice. I have been enjoying my read of Sailor Moon. It's not my most favorite series, but it is definitely an important work. So we're reading it. I have been enjoying it. Let me know if you want to hear my thoughts after I've completed this series. There aren't too many more of these Eternal Editions before the series is complete in them. So if you want to know my thoughts, let me know, and I will probably do a review on this series if it is requested enough. But yeah, not really a whole lot else to say. It's Sailor Moon. Most people know what Sailor Moon is about, and these are just very large, very nice volumes that Kodansha is putting out for this series. But that is Sailor Moon Eternal Edition Volume 7. And last up for this haul, I have the Magic Knight Rayearth box set. So I have heard from a lot of people that it is a nice set. I've been told that this series is quite good, so I am going to make my own judgments, but I was also able to get it quite cheap, or at least significantly cheaper than the asking price. I think I paid I don't know exactly how much I paid off the top of my head, but it wasn't close to retail. So I did get a good deal on it. It was on Amazon, unfortunately, so that's why there's some damage up there in the corner. Amazon is bad at shipping things. You'd think for a company whose main claim to fame is shipping things would know how to do that, but, you know, things happened. It just seems that things happen with Amazon a lot more than with a lot of other companies. But yeah, it is the box set. The damage isn't too bad, especially on the books. There really isn't anything to notice, so that's good. Haven't read it yet. I want to do it relatively soon. I'm not sure if they're going to release a box set for the sequel series, Magic Knight Rayearth 2. We'll see if that happens. If I enjoy this one, I will probably pick up that box set as well if they do end up releasing one. But yeah, this is a work by the very famous, very popular Clamp, and the box set is quite nice, and I am interested in seeing the material. I know Mama Loves Manga is a big fan of all Clamp works, so I want to say this is one of the ones she really enjoys a lot. I think her favorite is Triple X Holic, is what I think from memory, but could be wrong. Ask her. Not me. I'm not her. But yeah, the Magic Knight Rayearth box set is very nice. Pretty expensive. Luckily, I got it for a lot cheaper than that. But yeah, interested to see how this series goes. If they release a second box set, I imagine they will. If I enjoy this, I will probably pick that up as well. But yeah, it is quite nice, quite heavy. It's just unfortunate that Amazon is just bad. So yeah, unfortunately that is the case, but things could be worse. It could have been like ripped all over the place, which it's not. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. If you want me to know my thoughts, I might just leave them on Twitter. So if you want to follow me there, you'll hear those if I end up dropping them. But yeah, that is the final release for this manga haul. First of the decade, January 2020. A little bit in the middle of February, but oh well. It is done. It is out. Lots of volumes. Could be a good thing or a bad thing. More of an expensive month than is usual, but I did get a number of series that I liked. Tried some new series, so good mix of everything. But as always, let me know your thoughts about the series I hauled this month. Which ones did you end up picking up? Have I convinced you to pick up any series? Heavenly Delusion and My Next Life as a Villainess. Definitely pick those ones up. If nothing else, pick those two series up. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on the series down in the comments below. Have you read any of the series I hauled? Let me know your thoughts if you have. Really enjoy reading those comments, especially the long thought out ones. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. As always, if you'd like to keep up to date with all of my content, you can hit that subscribe button, ring that notifications bell, and or follow me on Twitter. There's a link to that in the description down below. If you have any questions, comments, criticisms, anything like that, leave those down in the comment section below. And as always, if you liked the video, make sure to like and share. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this manga haul for the month of January 2020, the first haul of the decade. I am Laethas. Goodbye.